I was 7 the first time I figured out I was someone's mistake. It was a Wednesday early spring, and my mom, Mary Ann, had just picked me up from my grandparents' place on North Cedar. I remember buckling my seatbelt too fast, hoping she'd say something about my spelling test. Instead, she sighed and muttered, "We didn't plan for you," like she was checking off a grocery item. That sentence never left me. My name's Russell. I'm 30 now. I grew up in Peoria, Illinois. My folks had me late. Mom was 43, Dad was 46. My sister Jenna was 12 and already planning her escape. Dad, Dale, treated mornings like a job route. He'd juggle coffee and keys, barely glance my way. "You wanted him," he'd joke to Grandpa Walter as he dropped me off before work. Never once did he walk me in. Jenna wasn't cruel. She just lived in a different world. Cheerleading, SAT prep, boys calling the house. She was the kind of girl teachers smiled at and let turn in homework late. I used to sit at the dining table with math worksheets no one asked about, chewing pencil erasers to mush. Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. It was Grandma Evelyn and Grandpa Walter who made me feel like I mattered. Grandma packed my lunches like I was going on a field trip every day. Tight foil wraps, cut fruit, little notes in perfect cursive. Grandpa picked me up from school with the truck windows down, radio off. He always asked what I learned, not what grade I got. Big difference. "Sometimes the best things in life aren't planned," Grandpa would say when I got stuck on fractions. He'd wink like he'd seen that truth play out. At their house, I breathed. The kitchen always smelled like something was baking, even if it wasn't. The couch had a permanent dent from my after-school naps. That creaky back porch was where I learned how to tie my shoes right. But nights were different. My parents would swing by, late, headlights casting long shadows through the living room window. I got good at reading the clock by how far their beams reached. Mom would barely say hi. Dad would glance at the gas gauge. Every pickup felt like a favor they were doing for someone else. I never said it out loud, but I waited every day for something to change. For a look or a word or even an accident that would make me feel like their kid. It didn't happen. But at Grandma's table, when Grandpa handed me the peanut butter without asking, or Grandma rubbed my back while I read out loud, I knew exactly whose boy I was, and I held on to that all the way to sleep. Jenna left for college in August. The house went quiet for one day. Then it got loud in a different way. I dropped my bag by the stairs like I always did. Before I could get my shoes off, Mom's voice cut through from the kitchen. "Bathrooms first, then the laundry. No, how was your day? No hello, just orders." Her list had a new name at the top, mine. I cleaned the toilet with my hoodie still on. Learned to scrub under faucets with a toothbrush nobody asked about. By the end of the week, I had a schedule taped to the fridge, hers, not mine. I learned the washer like it was my second language. Cold water for colors, warm for towels. If the belt made a certain squeal, I had 10 minutes to fix it or the cycle would fail. Dad's work pants had a setting all their own. Nobody thanked me. Nobody even noticed. But if I missed a stain, you'd think I dented the car. At 14, dinners became my shift. No family meeting, no talk. Just one night, Mom pointed at the thawed meat and said, "You're old enough." First meal was spaghetti so mushy it could have been soup. Dad still chewed it down and said, "Try chicken tomorrow." That's how it went. I used to read college brochures like they were menus. Picked out dorms in places with snow or beaches. Anywhere that looked like it didn't smell like bleach and burnt ground beef. I'd lie on my bed with a full sink waiting and dream about a desk that was mine and a door I could lock. Then Jenna came home. She had Blake with her. Tall, polished guy with teeth so white they looked fake. Shook hands like he wanted you to know he read books. "We're engaged," she said, like she'd won something. My parents jumped like they'd been shocked. Hugs, tears, the whole thing. Dad clapped Blake on the back like he'd cured cancer. Mom grabbed Jenna's hand and stared at the ring like it came with a condo. After that, our house turned into a showroom. Cake tastings, venue tours, dress fittings, sample menus. I started eating leftovers cold because every night they were out, just for an hour, which meant 3. I watched receipts stack up like junk mail, calligraphy invites, string quartet deposit, something called a signature scent experience. My bed got moved so Jenna could use my room for gift storage. I ended up in the basement for 2 months next to the water heater. Grandma and Grandpa came to the wedding, dressed nice, smiling, polite. But I caught Grandma frowning at this insane floral arch. Roses, orchids, some vine thing that looked imported. Her mouth didn't move, but her eyes said everything. She pressed Grandpa's hand during the vows, and he gave the slightest nod. They never said a word. I filed that look away like a document, because someday I'd need to remember who knew the price of things and who only knew the cost. By senior year, I learned to keep my wins quiet. Still, the day the letters came, I laid all 4 envelopes on the kitchen table like they were proof I existed. I lined them up, neat, edges squared. My hands shook anyway. Mom was eating soup. Dad stood by the counter scrolling his phone. I said the school names slow, like they deserved respect. I told them about the scholarships I'd scraped together, the grants, the gap that was left. I even had numbers written out, simple, clean. My chest felt light for the first time in years. Mom didn't look up. She kept spooning broth like this was weather. "We can't pay," she said. "We used everything for the wedding. Took a loan, too." Dad nodded, still not looking at me. "Get a job, take loans, that's being responsible." The words landed flat. No discussion, no pause. "You paid for Jenna's school," I said. My voice sounded thin, like it might snap. "That was different," Mom said. She finally looked at me then. "We saw potential." That word sat there between the salt and the napkins. Potential. Like it was a receipt item they forgot to scan for me. I stood up without asking to be excused. The chair legs screamed on the tile. My hands were shaking bad enough I shoved them in my pockets. I grabbed my jacket and walked out before anyone could tell me to close the door. I called Grandma from the sidewalk. I didn't even say hi right. The words fell out of me in pieces while my chest worked hard, like I'd been running. She told me to come over. North Cedar was 3 blocks and a lifetime away. I walked fast, cut through yards I wasn't supposed to, didn't stop once. Grandpa opened the door before I knocked. I told him everything at the kitchen table, the letters, the wedding money, the word. Grandma's face stayed calm, but her jaw tightened. Grandpa got up without a sound and went to his study. He came back with a folder thick enough to bend. He set it in front of me and pushed it across the table. "We've been saving for your education since the day you arrived," he said. Inside were bank statements, old ones, new ones. Dates that went back farther than my memory. The numbers were steady and patient, like they'd been waiting for me to catch up. I stared until my eyes burned. "I don't understand," I said. "You don't need to," Grandma said. She put her hand over mine. "You just need to go." I packed the basics that night. Clothes, books, the shoebox where I kept important papers. I told my parents I was moving in with my grandparents. Mom didn't argue. She didn't even turn around. "Whatever you think is best," she said, staring into the sink. It sounded like relief. I declared finance a week later. Watching my parents burn money taught me exactly what not to do. Grandma filled out forms with a pen she liked. Grandpa drove me to buy supplies, used laptop, notebooks, a cheap calculator. The list wasn't long, but when we loaded the trunk and shut it, it felt heavy in the right way, like a future you could lift. And I got in the car. Classes started early and came fast. I was behind before I even knew what to fall back on. But numbers made sense. I didn't care about ancient texts or art history, but show me a spreadsheet and I could breathe again. Risk, cash flow, breakpoints, those weren't just theories to me. They were memories with price tags. I stayed after class, asked dumb questions until they weren't dumb anymore. Professors noticed. One of them, Dr. Whitmore, pulled me aside after midterms. "You ever think about investment strategy?" he asked. Every time I balanced my debit card, I told him. He laughed, then said he knew a place that liked kids who didn't flinch at hard numbers. That winter, I landed an internship at a firm known for clean books, sharp pencils, and no hand-holding. I showed up early, stayed late, kept my mouth shut unless I had something worth saying. They handed me a messy portfolio 3 weeks in. Guy before me bailed mid-review. I found the leaks, rebuilt the chart, and turned it in like it was just another homework. My supervisor tapped the paper twice. "You've got an instinct for this," he said. "You coming back next summer?" I said yes before he finished the question. Sunday calls with Grandma became my favorite 10 minutes of the week. She kept them short. Updates, questions, always ended with, "Eat more than coffee." She kept me posted on the house, too. Jenna's marketing degree wasn't landing. Blake was bouncing between gigs like a pinball. They were always between opportunities, but never between bills. The money never matched the calendar. My parents kept helping. Then one week, Grandma mentioned Mom dipped into her retirement. "Just this once," she said. I could hear the edge in her voice even through the landline. It wasn't just once. A year later, Jenna and Blake moved back into my old room. 2 grown adults in a 10x10 with a dresser I built in 7th grade. Grandma didn't say much, but I knew what that did to a house. Noise in every hallway, late-night dishes, someone always sitting where you meant to be. I pictured the desk I used to keep cleared and the drawers I folded just right. The idea of Blake tossing his socks in there made me laugh, bitter and fast. I didn't go back much, not because I didn't want to see my grandparents, but because I couldn't stand what the place had turned into. So, I stayed busy. When I had extra hours, I took them. When I had extra money, I saved it. When I had nothing to do, I made something up. Any excuse to avoid a dinner that smelled like tension and reheated spaghetti. I worked, studied, ran numbers like they were prayers. I built budgets like walls. Nobody was going to come ask me to bail them out. Not yet. Not then. When I missed anyone, it was Grandma asking if I was warm enough, and Grandpa pointing at my resume like it was gold. Never my parents, and definitely not Jenna. I walked into Grandma's kitchen and knew right away something was wrong. The room smelled the same, toast, coffee, lemon cleaner, but the air felt tight. Grandma smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Grandpa stood at the counter stirring his coffee like it weighed 100 pounds. I dropped my backpack by the chair. "What's going on?" They didn't rush it. That made it worse. "Your parents came by," Grandpa said finally. He set the spoon down and didn't drink. "They're upside down with the bank." My jaw locked. "How upside down?" "They asked for their inheritance early," he said. His voice stayed even, but his shoulders sagged. "Said it would fix things." "How much?" I asked. Grandma answered this time. 180. She said it soft, like you'd say a prayer. "They said it would stop the bleeding." The number hit me square in the chest. It felt hot. I stood there staring at the table, counting the scratches in the wood to keep my hands steady. "You didn't," I said. I already knew the answer. Grandpa nodded once. "We did. They're still our daughter and son-in-law." He looked older saying it, not tired, older. Like something had shifted inside him and didn't plan on shifting back. "That's most of it," I said. I wasn't asking. Grandma didn't argue. She reached for my wrist instead, her thumb warm and sure. "What's done is done," she said. "We'll be fine." I thought about Jenna's wedding, the flowers, the music, the checks my mom wrote like the account was endless. I thought about the word potential sitting on that kitchen table years ago, like it belonged to someone else. A fire climbed up my chest and sat there. I wanted to yell. I wanted to march down the street and knock on my parents' door until someone admitted what they had done. I didn't do any of that. I stared at the floor, tried to make the math work in my head, tried to see a version of this that didn't end badly. Grandpa pushed his chair in. "We wanted you to know," he said. "Not to worry you, just to be honest." I swallowed. They didn't say anything to me. "No," Grandma said. "They didn't." The silence stretched. The clock over the sink clicked loud enough to count. I hated that sound. It felt like time charging interest. I looked up at them, really looked, at Grandpa's hands rough and steady, at Grandma's eyes, still kind, still brave, and I knew something hard and clear. I stood up. My chair scraped back sharp. "I won't let this happen again," I said. My voice didn't shake. "I will never be the reason you have to choose between love and ruin." Grandma tightened her grip on my wrist. Grandpa nodded, slow. I meant it. I picked up my backpack, slung it over my shoulder, and walked out into the cold, already counting steps, already planning how to make sure that promise held. The job came through 3 weeks after finals, mid-tier investment firm in Chicago, run by no-nonsense people who liked sharp math and clean folders, real salary, health insurance, a desk that locked. I signed the offer, moved into a small one-bedroom on the north side, and stood in the middle of the apartment just listening to the silence. It felt like permission. Like I'd earned air. I stayed busy. Long hours, audit write-ups, clients who wanted miracles with zero risk. I kept my head down and let the work teach me. that slow climb where you stop guessing and start knowing. By the second raise, I had more in my savings than my parents ever did. Then Grandpa's heart just gave out. No warning, no drawn-out hospital run. 1 minute he was filling the bird feeder. Next minute, he was gone. By the time I parked outside St. Mary's, they'd already pulled the sheet. I sat in the waiting room with my hands clenched so hard my nails left the marks. Grandma didn't cry. She just folded his jacket and held it in her lap like she was waiting for him to come back for it. 9 weeks later, she was gone too. Slower, but not by much. I think her system just quit without him. I handled everything: paperwork, death certificates, church arrangements, guest lists. The funeral director handed me a clipboard and said, "You're the one they always mentioned." Mom showed up at the funeral home with a flat expression and quiet footsteps. She looked smaller than I remembered. Her coat didn't fit right. Her voice was soft. "Let me help," she said, almost whispering. I nodded. I didn't know how to say no to her face. We sat at a folding table surrounded by catalogs of flowers and hymn options. She pointed to lilies. I picked the ones Grandma always put in the kitchen. Then, like it was nothing, she started talking money. "Your father had to pull from the Roth again," she said. "Retirement just didn't stretch." I didn't answer. She went on. "Jenna's got the twins now, Owen and Luke. Real sweet boys, but it's been hard. They need bridge help every month just to keep diapers and daycare paid." Dad showed up halfway through the meeting. He looked tired and not in a working man way. More like a man who hadn't stood up straight in a while. "We barely make ends meet," he said, like it was something I should have already known. I stared at the funeral program, counted the bullet points, kept my face steady. I'd learned that in conference rooms, how to hear requests without flinching. We buried Grandma on a gray Tuesday. The church was too warm, and the wind outside was bitter, like winter hadn't decided to leave yet. Afterward, the house on North Cedar was dead quiet, but it didn't feel peaceful. It rang, like the absence of two people who used to fill space just by existing. I stood in their empty hallway that night, ran my fingers along the edge of the wall where my height used to be marked in pencil. The years were still there. The people weren't, and the silence wasn't empty. It was waiting. Mr. Ellis's office smelled like lemon oil and paper that hadn't moved in years. The wood paneling was the color of weak coffee. The air felt stiff. I sat in the chair closest to the window, hands folded, back straight. Jenna sat to my left. Mom and Dad across from me. Blake stood behind her, arms crossed like a bodyguard. Mr. Ellis didn't waste time. "Thank you all for coming. Let's begin." I braced for the usual: jewelry, furniture, maybe the car. Then he said it. "To our grandson Russell," he read, voice even, "we leave the house at 218 North Cedar and the sum of $130,000. Jenna made a small choking sound. Her mouth opened like it was stuck there. Mom reached across and grabbed Dad's sleeve like she needed it to breathe. I didn't move. I locked eyes on a dark knot in the desk wood and let my face go blank. Mr. Ellis cleared his throat and kept reading. "A note to our daughter, Mary Ann. Remember, we provided $180,000 when you asked. This is our final decision. We trust you will respect it as we respected your need." That room went cold fast. Mom's face drained white, then flushed red like someone flipped a light switch. Dad started blinking fast, staring at the carpet. Jenna leaned forward, like maybe there was more coming. There wasn't. Mr. Ellis closed the folder and folded his hands. "That concludes the reading." Nobody stood up right away. Nobody spoke. I stood first, walked out calm. Got 3 steps past the front door before I heard them coming. Mom caught up fast. "We were counting on the house," she said. Her voice was sharp, like I'd stolen it. Dad stepped up beside her. "We need it. The mortgage is behind. The boys need a yard. We're not asking for all the money, just the house." "No," I said, not loud, just clear. Grandma and Grandpa made it clear. They blinked, like I'd smacked them with it. I kept walking. My car was 2 rows over. They followed anyway. Jenna came up behind them, pushing fast. "You don't even have kids," she said. "You don't need a yard. My boys could grow up there. It's family." I stopped walking. I turned to face them. "I was the family," I said. "You were busy. You wanted potential, remember? Now you want property." Blake muttered something I didn't catch. I didn't ask him to repeat it. Mom stepped forward again. "This isn't what they would have wanted." I looked her straight in the face. It's exactly what they wanted. You just don't like that it wasn't for you. Dad tried soft. We're your parents. I opened my car door, and they were mine. I got in, shut it before they could answer, and turned the engine over while they stood there looking like they expected the ending to go another way. Jenna knocked once on the window. I didn't look. I drove off slow, just in case someone got any bright ideas about blocking the exit. The papers were in my glove box. The house was mine. For once, there was nothing left to argue. I stood in that doorway until the last car backed out and turned its headlights toward the main road. Porch lights flickered as people passed me, quiet, embarrassed, pretending their hands weren't full of the party favors from a lie. The front door clicked shut behind the last one. It was just me, my parents, Jenna, and the wreckage. The living room looked like a catalog page, fresh throw pillows, string lights, a ridiculous grazing table no one had touched. I stepped farther in, dropped the folder on the coffee table, and looked around like I was seeing it for the first time. Why? I asked. No heat, just the question. Dad went to the armchair, sat like the weight finally hit him. We thought you'd sign it over eventually. After what? I said. After you rewrote the whole story and cut me out? Mom crossed her arms. You were always so cold about everything. We didn't think you'd understand how this meant. Don't, I cut in. You had plenty of time to ask. You chose to pretend I didn't exist. She tried to soften. We were just trying to have something normal, something nice. With my money? I asked. With the house I bought for you? Jenna hovered by the fireplace, arms wrapped around herself. You didn't need to embarrass them, she muttered. This could have been private. It was private, I snapped, until you posted the invite on Facebook and made it about you. She flinched, then looked away. I took a breath, then picked up the folder and held it out. You wanted to know what I planned to do tonight? This was it. Sign it over, for good. Gift, no strings. I even wrote a damn speech. Mom stared at the folder like it had teeth. But then I stood outside, I went on, and listened to you talk like I never helped, like I was some selfish kid too busy for family. I opened the folder, pulled the unsigned deed out, held it up. This is still mine. That's the law. And now, it's staying that way. Dad rubbed his face. We've already moved in, changed our address. We painted the garage. Send me a bill, I said flat. You're leaving. Jenna stepped forward. What about the boys? Where are they supposed to go? Not my call, I said. Maybe ask Blake, or try helping yourself for once. Mom's voice rose. You're seriously putting us out like this? After everything we've done? Stop, I said. You didn't raise me. You managed me, you tolerated me. That's not parenting. That's logistics. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. I gave you chance after chance, I said, and you used them to take more. Dad stood, face tight. You're making a mistake. No, I said. I made the mistake walking in here, thinking I still owed you something. The room fell silent again. I want the keys by Friday, I added. You'll find a check in the drawer for the moving truck. After that, you're out. I walked past Jenna. She couldn't meet my eyes. At the door, I paused and looked back one last time. Grandma and Grandpa gave everything they had and never asked for a thank you. You burned through their gift and tried to erase me from it. That ends now. I stepped outside. Cool night air hit me like clarity. I walked down the steps slow, calm, folder tucked under my arm like armor. I didn't look back. They'd already taken enough. Now, I was taking it back. The next week, the calls came in. Numbers I didn't recognize, but I knew exactly who was behind them. I blocked each one as it rang. They tried again. Different area codes. Blocked again. Then the emails started. Some short, clipped. Some long and sugary. One was just a photo of Owen holding a drawing that said, "We miss you." I let them all sit unread. I heard through a mutual from church that they sold their old place. Used the cash to get into a modest condo on the West End. Jenna and Blake moved in too, with the boys, 4 people in 2 bedrooms. I didn't check the address. I didn't need to. I walked the ranch one last time with a clipboard in hand, fixed the chipped tile in the laundry room, patched the drywall behind the hall door, cleaned out the gutters. I left the fridge stocked, heat set low but steady, blinds half drawn. Then I listed it. The wire hit 2 weeks later. I moved the money where it worked for me, quietly, with no phone calls, no ceremony. People asked if I felt bad. I thought about the night in that kitchen, the way Grandma's hand covered mine, steady and warm. The folder Grandpa slid across the table without a word, the trust in that gesture. I thought about Dad's keys jingling every morning, like I was just another stop on the way to work. I don't hate them. I wouldn't say that. I think they love me the way someone loves a plant they didn't ask for, watered it when they remembered, got surprised when it didn't die. But my grandparents, they loved me like a son. They saw me, fed me, taught me how to show up, how to hold your word, how to give without strings. They told the truth even when it hurt. They had my back without a scoreboard. I keep their photos on a shelf I dust. I'm 58 now. I've done all right. I live quiet. I like my work. I don't chase much. Some Sundays, I drive past North Cedar. I park for a minute and sit there with the windows down. Sometimes I talk out loud, just a quick thank you. Probably looks nuts from the outside, but I owe them that. I owe them everything. If I ever have kids, they won't have to earn me. They'll have a roof, a shot, and a father who shows up. They won't hear potential like it's a test they have to pass. They'll hear it like a job we both have, to grow something good. Boundaries are fences. They keep the dogs in and the coyotes out. I built mine late, but I built it solid. That night at the party, I didn't feel proud. I felt clear, and clear's enough. I can live with clear.